And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Legacy Texas Motor Speedway tonight for another edition of the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it's on Friday. Blake McCandless, Justin Prince, and Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer live on STN for what should be another thrilling edition of this series, Justin. The wonderful thing about this series, every time we see these guys on track, they're in something that's totally different, totally new. You may think Texas may not be an ideal super speedway, but when you put these Riley DPs that these drivers will be wheeling around on track, it certainly becomes that.
It's going to be very interesting, to say the very least, tonight here for the Pop Shot Game Ready Corn 300K, because these drivers in practice earlier tonight, Blake, were going 3-4 wide in the corners, carrying speeds of more than 170 miles an hour. These machines, meanwhile, as well, though, if you get them even a little bit squirrely, good luck trying to hold on, because there have been several drivers who have spun around the entire straightaway trying to hold on to these machines. It's not going to be easy tonight. And oh, by the way, apron is legal for some of these drivers tonight.
That is, I think, what a lot of us are going to be interested in, is obviously these cars have so much downforce to them. It's going to be interesting to see how many drivers want to put it down there, try to make up positions. We see right now as qualifying is going on, a couple that are running right along the apron in 3 and 4 there. But that is going to be the question. When will these drivers try to make those big, bold, those big, meaty moves, as our friend Moonhead would like to say? But also, the one thing about these cars is just the draft is insane in these cars. It is all but impossible if you're the leader to break away and try to make up some ground. So the runs for these guys are going to come aplenty, and it's what you do with those runs that's going to make the difference in how you run tonight.
Yeah, I was watching some of the drivers go back and forth, Blake, and it was like popcorn, actually, with how they were battling. One driver pops up to the front, the next one pops on forward like a popcorn kernel to the next position. It's going to be like that all night. Keep in mind the difference for some drivers, upwards of nearly a full second difference between the draft and no draft. So keeping in that pack is also going to be critical to make sure you keep on going back and forth. If you end up losing that draft, good luck, because that pace is going to be very big, as seen with these qualifying speeds. These speeds are going to go up an additional 10 plus miles an hour just from that draft alone, because of how powerful it is.
Well, we've seen times that are up in the 29-second bracket, and yet nobody is close in qualifying to reaching that level of speed right now, as we have about 20 seconds left in our qualifying session. Mike McConville, 30.763, looks like he's going to be able to hold down the pole award, but the fastest time in practice, that's a 29.533, so no doubt about it, the draft is going to come into play. Not only chasing down the car in front of you, but having that car behind you can certainly help you as well. And that is going to be the way our starting grid looks here through qualifying. It looks like Mike McConville is going to take that pole award. So we'll condense things down. One heat will be all we speak of. Every driver is going to transfer in. So our top two, we get pretty much locked into their pole positions, or at least positions on the front row. Sean Butler and Mike McConville will be your top two. The rest of the starting grid for the race will be decided right here in this heat, 15 laps. You'll see Brendan Hawk and Justin Malillo make up the front row. Derek Justice, Adam Martin in row number 2. Brendan Mersd, Ethan Corder, Luke Breitschoff, Kenny Brady, Jack Painter, and Andrew Hardcastle round out the top 10.
Lucas Plussel will start in 11th position. Michael Frisch in 12th spot, with Clint Roberts in 13th. Tyler Williams starts 14th for this qualifying heat, with Pendicio in 15th position. Tristan Hagenstein, your points leader, is in 16th, with Jeremy Clapper in 17th. Duraki starts in 18th position. Jake Pullen starts at 19th, with Isaac Johnson rounding out the 20 drivers who will take part in this respective heat. It's about to get crazy. Let's put it that way here for these drivers.
It is indeed. And when you talk about tire sets, you imagine they wouldn't really matter. They do have unlimited tires on pit road. Don't imagine you'll want to do that. Don't imagine that you'll want to add fuel to these cars at any point if you do have to come down pit road. One fast repair is at play if you so need it. But again, all of these drivers, they're already into the main feature. We're just out here basically deciding who's going to start third through 20th or through 22nd in this field. So this is kind of an extended practice session, Justin. These guys, again, with the car combination that is so unique, this is a good opportunity to really try some things. And if it doesn't work out, you can just put that in the old notebook when we start to look forward here to the race.
It's going to be interesting to say the very least. No, by the way, drivers have just been reminded no caution flags for this respective heat as well for the 15 laps up on the board. So, in other words, if you want to start in the front, you're going to have to stay out of trouble here, Blake. To put this into perspective, drivers were discussing right before the start of qualifying how many laps they thought they would last. Sean Butler, who was one of those drivers, along with Mike McConville, who locked themselves in the front row, put that number at 10 laps. Others, 50. So we'll see how much that ends up coming into play here. If they're right, if they're way off the mark, or if we see everyone make it 125 laps for the main race later on tonight.
We'll see. I imagine you'll see a couple of drivers in this heat because, again, this is really just kind of an extension of our qualifying session. I imagine you'll see a couple of drivers that may try some things here. They got about 15 laps to try and figure things out. But at the end of it, they may not want to start up front for the main feature. They may think these guys are crazy. They're going to wreck each other a bunch. I don't want to use my fast repair too soon. So I would not be surprised if we saw a couple of drivers here, especially towards the end of this race. You obviously want to take advantage, use everything you can to learn all about these cars and the type of runs you can build up. But I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of guys went there towards the back and basically gave up spots towards the end of this heat so that they would start in the back for the feature. So Brandon Hawken will get us started 15 laps as he gets about a 2-car length advantage over Justin Melillo as they head into turn number 1. And you can already see Melillo starting to make up ground. That draft powerful with these big wings on the back of these race cars. And we'll see just how aggressive these guys get. Hawken not going to push the issue too much as now here comes Justin Melillo and a move up the high side. That is Ethan Corder trying to lead the third lane. They're already 4 wide behind them.
Luke Brightshoff actually scraped the wall trying to make it 4 wide, nearly hitting the safer barrier. In fact, just not enough room for him to poke his way on forward. And these are the runs you were talking about before here, Blake. Massive, massive runs these drivers are going to get from those slingshots. So you need to be able to time these up perfectly. There's drivers even tapping the brakes here to make sure they don't get too big of a run. Keep an eye on Derek Justice and some of the drivers, the bottom lines brake lights, for example. They were also practicing bump drafting as well with the very front of these machines, which can be very difficult to say the very least in a prototype.
I was about to say, this front end is curved. It doesn't line up as a couple of drivers are into the wall here in the tri-oval, and they're going to be able to save it. It looks like the purple machine, that is Michael P. Frisch, who did just enough to hang on, got a little bit of damage, but they were able to hang on, and they are okay. They will continue to go forward here. And that is one thing that is so much different. You think about super speedway racing. Most of the super speedway racing, these guys are used to taking part in. They don't have brake lights on the cars that they're racing in, and you know, honestly, I feel like for a plate track, that's kind of a bad thing. You just see the brakes of the guy in front of you, and you know that they're doing something to slow down, and you don't see that in super speedway racing. So I feel like it could be a little bit of a detriment here. But you talked about the bump draft, and we saw Michael Frisch. He was already in the back. He got hit earlier. Now he's pushing up and surging Ethan Corder to the race lead. So a perfect example, if you can get that bump draft to work, you see it pay dividends, as now Frisch is going to go all the way to the back. Oh, whoa, Frisch.
Well, there's to the back, and then there's to the sky.
Yes, there is, and 4 wide through the tri-oval did not work as Frisch went up and over about 3 or 4 times, barrel rolled here down the front straightaway, and his car is going to come to rest. Again, he'll have to work his way forward to the main feature through the back of the field, but we look forward here. We saw Ethan Corder had the lead that last time. Now Brandon Hawken has taken it back, and my goodness, Justin, we're only 6 laps into this.
Oh, Derek Justice clocked the wall, and that's going to be significant damage. You do not want to get types of damage here as they go flying.
One car barrel rolling through 1 and 2. And that is our points leader, Tristan Hagenstein, almost shades of Michael McDowell, if you can remember a couple, or I wouldn't say a couple of years ago, about over a decade ago, where McDowell went barrel rolling down the banking here in Texas, and that resembled that quite closely. And these cars, it is insane. I don't imagine we'll see this level of aggression this early on. Again, there's really nothing to lose. Everybody transfers in. We've seen how easy to make up spots it is. I would, if I were a driver, I'd be really pushing the issue here because, again, this is such a great opportunity to learn what your car is capable of, how you can move in the draft, what moves can and cannot work. But still, it is amazing how on edge these cars are and how the slightest mistake we've already seen take out a handful of guys.
And I'm noticing here too, at the same time, drivers are picking up on the fact that dragging the brakes a little bit is going to be beneficial to make sure you don't have too big of a run, it looks like, to be able to stay in the lines. Take a look, for example, in the corner. This is going to be Ryan Rocky you see up in front of Justin Malillo, for example, just tapping the brake lightly in the corners when they feel like it. When they don't want to let up and want to get this big run to be able to pull on forward, you won't see those brake lights. I think they picked it up for Justice, since Justice at the start of the race was the only driver who was doing it. Now, a majority of the pack is starting to pick up on it.
I think those brake lights are kind of a detriment to the car behind you. You just see those lights, you automatically just in your brain, you think slow down, as we're going to have one driver here on the apron. It's the first time we've seen that. Ethan Quarter tried to go in to turn 3 on the apron, was not able to make it stick. He had to back out of it, but that is something we might see at some point. If you get enough of a run, I wouldn't be surprised if guys try to go down there and possibly make up spots. It's going to be tough to stick it down there, but, you know, it's a possibility that these drivers could have. As we see Quarter, once again, he'll go down to the apron on the bottom 3 wide, and he's actually able to make the move work. He shoots everybody else up. They give him the room to come back onto the racetrack. So Quarter able to make that work. And again, no yellow line here at Texas. Every inch of this racetrack is in play. And one interesting thing I'm noticing, Justin, as one car flipping once again here in the beginning of 1, that is Tyler J. Williams, who ate the wall there, and Lucas Ploso also was involved in that accident. But the one thing I'm seeing here is the grass is getting cut here in the tri-oval right at the dog leg. We're basically seeing these drivers doing their best lawn care job at each entry here in the dog leg. You see it once on entry, you see it once there on the exit.
Yeah, these cars are just so on edge, where I think once they get to the quad oval, it's very difficult. Was hearing 4 drivers were also trying to keep the car straight very aggressively down the straightaway itself, as in the steering actually bends a little bit as these drivers nearly bent their way into the inside wall. Keep in mind that if you pick up damage, that is, as we talked about, going to be huge, where drivers are seeing differentials, I should rather say, of up to 5 miles an hour. So it's going to be tricky to make sure you keep your car clean for the next 3 laps here, and this is all going to be important data for these drivers for the main racing actions. To the front, Malillo.
Justin Malillo to the front. Again, we have 2.5 laps left to go here in heat number 1 here at Texas Motor Speedway. Malillo out front. You see Ryan Naraki right up to the back of him. We saw Naraki earlier. He was able to give a heck of a push. I believe it was to Brandon Hawken a little bit earlier, but one of those cars that could definitely make that 2-car tandem work, as we see it work in unison. As we're talking about it, Adam Martin pushes Brandon Hawken out front. So that bump draft, it is worth something, but when do you overheat? When is it going to go too much? Here comes Justin Malillo all the way almost to the inside wall here as they work down the backstretch.
I was curious to see if he would have tried it in the corner to stick to the apron here. No one's been that daring quite yet here, but with the white flag, this may come down to the final corner to decide who wins this heat race and gets the 3rd position here for the start of this action. To the outside now to build up some runs, looks like a couple drivers.
One more lap to determine the starting order for this race and get a preview of what we may see in about 125 laps once we get to that feature. Brendan Hawken on the bottom. He's going to throw a block on Melillo. It's successful, but here comes Melillo with the push. Hawken goes low to block. He's sliding through the grass. They flip behind them, and at the end of it all, coming out on top is Ryan Naraki, who crosses the line in first as Hawken went down, slid up across the racetrack, and it was Justin Melillo and Adam Martin who absolutely took flight. Adam Martin, about a mile above the racetrack, still finished in 7th, and he was about as high as the press box.
Unreal. Unreal as look at this. Well, that was some fun, to say the very least, and I think that's a preview of what's going to happen around this point, even 15 laps in, Blake, that drivers may start losing those back tires. We'll have to take a look towards that final corner where there was a bit of a push coming through the corner, keep in mind, and out of the corner on the back end of Hawken. And I think that's where that tripulated to where Hawken was down all the way in that grass, trying to battle and fight for that position, trying to cut down to the bottom.
We'll take a look at it one more time. Again, you see Melillo out front. Brandon Hawken in control of the race lead. Melillo goes down low as we work through the entire last lap here. We see Quarter go to the top there, and I think he's just trying to get out. He was trying to pull the strategy we saw earlier, but yeah. Again, the apron is in play. Melillo goes down to the bottom, and through 3 and 4, the whole pack just separates.
Yeah, you're going to see right here, first that move bobbles him down to the bottom of the racetrack. Looks like he's going to be okay, but then he sees this big run. Was already squirrely with the back tires, got hit from behind, and boom. Just... you end up seeing those drivers just get launched up into the sky. Some of them bouncing all the way to the end of the pit lane. They hit so hard at the safer barrier. Justin Melillo, who was in position to try and win that one, ends up finishing in 10th position. Also flipping at the very end of the start and finish line in the quad oval.
Well, that was something. I just don't know how early on for a 125 lap race, how early on we're going to see racing like that. It's going to be wild to see the decisions these drivers make. Now, we do have the potential here to have green flag pit stops. These cars can hold 16 gallons of fuel and anywhere from about 100 to 110 laps. At least I know that's a pretty wide window, but that's what I'm showing on what these drivers can make it on fuel. So if we were, I don't imagine this would be the case, but if we were to go green for the entirety of this race, we would see green flag pit stops come into play. You wouldn't be able to make it all the way on fuel. So it'll be interesting to see what these drivers do, because again, in a car like this, you kind of want the least amount of fuel as possible.
Yeah, because in these types of machines, keep in mind, the lighter the car, the quicker the laps are going to end up going, because it's not as heavy overall, and in turn, not as much load on the car. But keep in mind that for the championship standings so far, it's a massive margin so far with what we've seen with Tristan Hagenstein in particular and how consistent he's been in the various types of vehicles after the first few races. It's going to be interesting how someone like him, like Sean Butler, like Michael Frisch do tonight to try and battle for position in the standings.
Let's you take a look here at those point standings. Hagenstein, you mentioned the consistency. That has been key as he holds a 44-point lead, a pretty significant margin over Sean Butler there for second. As you look at the entire top 10, pretty close between a lot of these drivers. Some of them not here, so they'll be losing a little bit of ground through the standings, as you see, after 3 of 8 races. So that's the other thing, Justin. When you talk about running for this championship, it's not a lot of time to get it done. You got 8 races, so you can't really afford to take too many weeks off or have bad finishes in those weeks.
And we've talked about this, Blake. It's so difficult because, well, it's super speedway racing. Yes, including in the Daytona prototypes tonight here, is essentially super speedway racing. It's tough to finish in the top 10, let alone the top 5 each race, because of the unpredictability which comes with these types of races, which puts into perspective how amazing Tristan Hagenstein's run's been so far, and also shows just some of the strength for some of the drivers on the super speedway tracks are across the service. Butler's known for being someone who wants to charge his way from the back up to the front and assert himself up the front of the field. He's second in the points. Michael Frisch, he is known for waiting in the back and then charging up in the late stages, always finding his way in just about every single major event lately, it seems like, for the past 2 years just about, including an FTF competition, with a shot to win the race. He's in third position. So I think it's just a major sign of how these drivers race and how strong they are in terms of balancing their pace, aggression, and having their luck go their way. The question is tonight, though, will the luck continue for these drivers? Not quite sure, especially since some of them are flipping upside down and others are having a burnout party at the end of pit lane for the start of this one.
Just having a little bit of fun tearing up some race cars before they might actually do it for real. As we take a look at the starting lineup for this 125 lap event, again, our top two, they didn't get to participate in that heat, so they may be flying blind out here for the first couple of laps, as Mike McConville and Sean Butler will make up row number one. Ryan Naraki won that heat, so he'll take the third starting position. Brandon Hawken in fourth. Brendan Mergsta in fifth. Ethan Corder will roll off from the sixth position. Seventh will be Clint Roberts. Eighth is Jack Painter. Ninth, Adam Martin. And Justin Malillo will round out the top 10.
Jake Pullen starts in 11th. Derek Justice, significant damage to the right side of his car in that heat race, will start in 12th. Andrew Hardcastle in 13th. Pediccio starts in 14th position. Jeremy Clapper will start 15th alongside Lucas Plussel, with Luke Breitschoff in 17th position. It will be Michael Frisch deep in the field in 18th, was among the drivers a lap down, in fact, in that last race. 3 laps down to be precise. With Tyler Williams, Tristan Hagenstein rounded at the top 20. The drivers who started the back of the field overall, Kenny Brady, Isaac Johnson. Keep in mind that Johnson did not start the heat race, elected to start shotgun on the field.
I don't think that'll be a bad place to be for at least a couple of the opening laps of this race. I don't know. The one thing you mentioned that is going to be so key is not losing the draft. Obviously, if we have a wreck, we have a wreck. But you don't want to put yourself in a position where maybe somebody gets loose, something happens, it doesn't bring out a yellow, and you lose the draft, because obviously you will lose that position very quickly. As we take a look at the weather here, relatively cool here in Texas, 63 degrees in the air, 70 degrees on track. So cool temperatures makes for a lot of speed for these drivers, a lot of grip. Which I'm sure is intentional here for this race. So Mike McConville, Sean Butler, your top two, is in just a couple of moments. The iRacing pace car will work its way to the safety of pit lane, and we will get started here. Riley D. Pease at Legacy Texas Motor Speedway. Glad to have you along with us here on STN as we get the green flag up and ready, and McConville and Butler will go across the start-finish line to get this thing started.
And already one driver onto the apron, in fact. I believe one driver already wanted to get to the back of the field. That's Jake Pullen.
Pullen implemented the same strategy to many wins, both in FTF Grand National Series competition and Firecracker 200. So obviously he wants no piece of this early part of the race running up front. As Mike McConville in the U.S. Army machine, he will come across to lead the first lap, but Ryan Naraki not content to ride in line. He'll get a push from his Speed Inc. teammate in Justin Malillo as they try to, or actually, excuse me, that's Sean Butler there on the high side. So they're going to try to break away here a little bit. Two-car tandem going to get formed up there in that second lane between Naraki and Butler.
And I'm keeping my eye on Derek Justice, who's trying to force that third lane to work on his own, and I don't know if that's going to necessarily work at the moment, but he's just able to carry that momentum just a little bit to be able to pick off the drivers one by one. Remember, that's the move that ended up getting him slammed into the outside wall down the front straightaway early on in his heat. So I think for Justice, he wants the track position and wants it fast here after playing it patient the first half of the heat. then trying to play it aggressive the second half. Now actually got some help. In fact, Jack Painter realizing the line is working.
There is a little bit of speed in that third lane, and again, with how narrow these cars are, we could probably fit 4, but this is where it gets really sketchy. Perhaps more than anywhere else on the racetrack, you see Ryan Pandiccio there through the tri-oval. Seems like these cars, not knowing where everybody's going to turn there through the tri-oval, this is where it gets really sketchy. 3 wide, 4 wide. It seems to work out. There's so much room here on this racetrack, but the tri-oval with that grass is pretty much the narrowest part of this track. We can see all these drivers. That apron is available, but nobody's down there right now. But the track really is thinner here than anywhere else. We see so many cars already clipping through the grass. I imagine by the end, there's not going to be much grass left there, at least at the very edge of it. It's going to be a lot of mud.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what happens at that point. But I think as long as you don't significantly damage the race car, you're in a good spot at the moment. And I think that's just what drivers are realizing. May as well just stay nice and calm, work together in a line, and that's what they're doing right now. Just trying to stay in line and work together and be patient here. As I think Justice realized that third line wasn't going to work the best for him after all his help vanished. He is now dropped to the back. In fact, he's got him back on the wall again on that third line.
Well, actually, he got hit into that wall. It was Kenny Brady that made a move there through the tri-oval, and he and Justice got collected in there. So Justice has a little bit of damage early on, and we'll see if he'll be able to rally there and at least keep up until maybe he can get a fast repair. But it looks like he has damage that's going to be pretty crippling here. You see him all the way at the back of this field just trying to hang on, do the best he can. But for now, I don't know if it's enough. It looks like he may have enough to just rally back in the draft. But for now, up front, it is still Ryan Naraki who has control of the field. And Mike McConville, he has also had a very strong run. Started up there on the front row and hasn't relinquished it since.
Yeah, and I don't blame McConville for holding onto the track position. It's the calmest place to be, right? Is the race lead. Well, until the last lap. But at this type of race, it just seems to be exactly how it wants to be. Bottom line, first driver on that line, because the driver behind in turn will likely try and use the brakes or try and lift off the throttle. Just elect to ride behind and save a little bit, be patient, while that second line just tries to continue to chug along. So this is all just big brain play and strategy play coming in to play here, where you just want to put yourself in a position or you try and keep yourself clean. And we've seen that so far in this race, much calmer compared to the heat.
Well, I think everybody realizes that this isn't a 15-lap sprint. This is a 125-lap race. Running about 30 seconds or just a hair above 30 seconds per lap. Mike McConville, our leader last time by, 30.829 to his 30.831 the previous lap. So you think about that's over an hour here of these cars running here at Texas. A long way to go. You definitely want to be out front. I think you want a little bit of track position here, but at the end of the day, not worth potentially using up that fast repair so early on. And be interesting to see how these guys continue to try to learn as much as they can about their cars, but also just keep in mind that there is a long way to go here. Not even we just completed lap 10 now to lap 11, so still quite a ways off here from these drivers working through this race.
The interesting thing is Jake Pullen's actually trying to get that third line working again. You see one of the orange machines again to the outside line. So several different drivers are saying, you know what? I want to try and go up there, take the risk. Kenny Brady is the lead car in that line, but the risk again is right here. That tight quad oval. It's so easy to make contact with how tight you have to squeeze. We've seen that instance before a little bit. That seen the damage for Justice where he's already 8 seconds behind the pack. So it's a bit of a risk that it looks like these top two on that line, I should say, are trying to say, you know what, it's worth taking the risk. May as well be a little bit aggressive and have some fun.
having some fun here trying to get that third line in play. Kenny Brady going up there, and oh, the leaders are around. Mike McConville is spun here through the infield grass as a couple others get tagged. Adam Martin after the wreck is involved, and the caution is out for the first time. This is what we were afraid of. And you know, when these guys were getting aggressive, we talked about bump drafting and how risky it was, but how much it worked. Well, that was obviously a case of it gone wrong as Mike McConville got into the back there of Ryan Naraki and spun him out of shape, and a couple other drivers get tagged in it.
Yeah, left the back tires up off the ground, believe, coming off of turn 4 to start that off, really. And then just hooked him right in the left rear, essentially, as they slid through the first part of the quad oval. Very tricky, let's put it that way, as we've seen in the heat race, to be able to do that properly. Once the tires start to wear in, drivers have already started to lift a little bit. But it looks like a majority of the field is saying it's time to come into pit here. So we are seeing drivers elect to take that service you were talking about right about now.
Well, again, that fuel window of about 110 laps, this would be the part in the race where if everybody can come down pit road, they should be good to go for the rest of the race. And again, of course, you want as little fuel as possible in these cars. So if you can come down, get full now, and have just enough to get there to the end, that'll work out perfectly, as it looks like off of pit road, a couple of drivers will take tires, a couple will not. It looks like Butler, Kenny Brady, Brandon Hawken didn't bother to put tires on their car. Lengthy pit stops on these cars, so it looks like we'll have kind of a split strategy there. But I don't imagine the tire wear is too significant in these cars. These things have so much downforce. I don't think they have to worry too much about whether their tires are good or not.
I would still say it's a bit of worry, though, with what we've seen at the very end of the heat race with drivers getting loose. But with the bar's visual replay, you'll see there was a bit of help. Jacked up right there, just gets into the back end as they go to the first part of the quad oval. And around they go at the bottom of the racetrack as both of them slide through the grass. Secondary incident as well, ended up collecting Tyler Williams, also sliding through the grass. That's Brightjump, who had to slide through there to avoid the trouble and the carnage. Just similar situation to the end of the heat race, essentially.
It was, and we've seen it time and time again that the tri-oval here is the difficult spot for these drivers. These cars are planted to the ground. You have so much room to make things work, but as soon as the tri-oval comes into play, it's seemingly where everything has happened tonight. So I imagine that is going to continue here. As you see Adam Martin there afterwards, as they were heading in turn 1 past the accident, they got spun around as well. But it is, again, these cars just put on a very interesting race. A lot of runs being made for each of these drivers. So lights are off the iRacing pace car, and looks like Sean Butler, who started on the front row, will cycle around and become the race leader, as he will lead us to green. Kenny Brady on his outside, Brandon Hawken and Jake Poulin directly behind him. We'll have to see how many drivers used that fast repair this last time out, and we will get back underway. Lap 16 coming on the board of 125. Sean Butler and Kenny Brady lead them into turn 1.
Well, Derek Justice did use one. He was running as slow as 156 miles an hour in the corners from that damage on the right side of his race car. He's up to 8th position because of some of the drivers coming down and how they took service. So it's going to be interesting now that he's going to be back on the aggressive mode here as a result here of that situation. Adam Martin going to work with him this time.
Martin up to the top side to try and make that lane work. It's going to merge there into the second lane as we have a change for the lead. Kenny Brady gets out front, clears himself in front of Sean Butler, so they go to the front of the field. Brady and Butler, your top two, as the bottom line starting to really flex its muscles right now. That second lane, third lane, not too formed up right now. That bottom lane doing a nice job there with Brady, with Butler. See even Brandon Hawken able to emerge third single file out there.
Yeah, I think that's going to eventually form up, though, as long as things shape out well. But the problem is, drivers on that outside line, in specific, drivers like Justice, just continues to want to make that work. And now I think everyone's saying, you know what, it's time to shuffle Justice here and try and get this back to 2 wide for the most part. Unless you're that car going up the middle 3 wides and jump up to Sean Butler.
That was Ryan Naraki, who had a monstrous run there. It stalled out once he got to the back of Sean Butler. But what a run he had. Is now we are 3 wide for the race lead. Butler, and I believe that is on the bottom side, one car drifting back as they nearly made contact through the tri-oval. That was Ryan Pandashio as they nearly got together. But Jake Poulin trying to make it work on the high side now, trying to make that third line work. But Kenny Brady has been awfully aggressive here early on. It's paid off. He's gotten the track position. Now he and Brandon Hawkins try to sell things out for the race lead.
Now this is getting intense already for these drivers. Keep in mind, it's lap 20 of 125 already for these drivers. And keep in mind that there are some drivers who did not use the fast spray. You're talking about Ethan Quarters got a bit of damage on the right rear, for example. Been suffering a little bit in turns 3 and 4, while some of the other drivers have already dropped to the very back by a couple seconds or so, who did not elect to use that fast repair early on. So that damage is coming into play for some of these competitors at the very back of the pack, as again Justice 3 wide gets shuffled as the brake lights go off.
I just don't know how much longer these guys can maintain this type of racing. All it takes is one bad bump draft in a car where it's not exactly easy to line up. All it takes is one slight mistake before everything goes wrong. And it just seems like the energy at the front of this pack, everybody's being aggressive, everybody's sliding around. And this is, again, where we've seen a lot of these mistakes happen. Drivers hitting the grass. You see a couple of them get out of shape around Mike McConville as he's trying to work his way up through traffic. I just can't imagine that for another 100 plus laps that we'll be able to see this type of racing side by side without just one slight mistake being made.
I agree with you on that one, and we've already seen drivers door bang each other, it looks like, throughout these corners. I think a lot of the drivers at this point, smart call would be just stay at the back and wait, because there again, Justice again slams the right side of his race car against the wall, and more damage. Not as bad as before, but that's going to severely hamper Justice.
You see him already drifting back again, already using that fast repair. So on lap 23, he has no more to speak of. He's in the third lane, but he is all by himself. Nothing to speak out of in terms of a teammate to try and go with him, as Ryan Naraki, Ryan Pandashio look to try and get by him. And it's exactly what we've seen, especially on the high side. We've seen it a number of times. Drivers just, they get loose in the tri-oval, or they're somehow not able to make it work, and they slam into the outside wall. It's tough when all of a sudden you go there and it feels like the track narrows up, you lose a ton of grip. As Michael Frisch out of safe, our race leader that last time by, he goes all the way to the top side, and I think he said, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I'm just going to go to the back.
Exactly what he's doing right now, really backing it down to about 165 miles an hour. So his teammates, keep in mind, with all those Kool-Aid carts are also back there as well, back into those machines. And again, with how aggressive it's getting, once the tire work kicks in, I think especially for some of these drivers in about a couple laps or so, I don't think you want to be 3 wide right now, especially with how squirrely these machines have been getting, because that's a recipe for the massive one.
It is, as you see Justice trying to pinch down on that third lane. He's got great help from Ethan Quarter, who scrapes the outside wall. It's exactly what we're talking about. And oh, Ethan Quarter's going to go around, and 3 wide does not work behind them. It's pretty much our top 3 escape. Everybody else is involved. One car barrel rolling there down to the apron in 1 and 2. Can't even get a good look at it to see who it is. What a huge accident here in turn 1. That was Brandon Hawkins, who has now gotten back onto pit road. His car is completely destroyed. And again, it was that 3 wide move we were talked about. The guy on the top side went up, hit the wall, and then it looked like a little bit of contact with he and Ryan Naraki that got things started here as they were about to reach turn 1.
Yeah, very tight situation, to say the very least. Naraki ends up getting the back into the 818 of Quarter. That's as the leaders were door banging each other, and it collects Brandon Hawkins, who just ramps off the front end of both of those machines. That's why was such a vicious launch for Brandon Hawken. And this essentially takes Hawken out of contention for the race win for now after very hard contact, the worst out of anybody in that incident.
Unfortunately for Hawken, he does have a fast repair, but because of the length of the toe, he is definitely going to go at least one, if not multiple laps down. So he's going to have to quickly work his way up through the field. As you take another look there at the ride that Brandon Hawken is going to go on. Vicious hit right there. Really nowhere to go for the oncoming car in Mike McConville, who already had some issues, wrecked out of the lead, and perhaps his night going to be almost done with how damaged his race car is. Not sure if he has another fast repair to speak of there for that machine. So it's going to be tough sledding for a couple of drivers who have already used that fast repair in that first accident. Not too many have, but he may be one of them. Our pole sitter may be in a bad spot here to try and move forward here.
Yeah, very tough situation. Already lost that lap, but here's an interesting situation, Blake. Everybody came down to the pit lane. Half the field having to get damage repair done, but the other half, except for one, took tires. Lucas Plussel did not. Only a 7-second top off on the gas, believe there, Blake, to be able to come out first there. So this is going to be a gamble for the 44 to see, okay, how much will the tires matter?
How much will the tires matter? How much will the fuel matter? I'm sure that's something that these drivers really want to try and find out. Is, you know, how much... I imagine, again, that the tires, you just have so much downforce in these cars. I can't imagine that there's going to be any truly significant tire wear in this race while these guys are working through this race. I just don't think it'll come into play that much, but clearly it's enough that everybody would keep on pitting. Initially, I thought, well, if you get your fuel, that's pretty much all you'll need, and it doesn't seem to be the case. Everybody is at least trying to get some type of run there to come and get tires if they need it.
Indeed. But we've seen it with just 15 laps, how squirrely some of these cars have been getting. So I don't blame them for taking the tires here. The interesting thing is going to be Derek Justice is now up at the front, and I believe was able to get a majority of the damage that he suffered repaired on his machine, it appears, that he onto the right side of the race car. So now Justice has migrated his way to the front row here.
He may have won his way to the front row. And again, we'll have to see how the repairs happen in this car. It seems like there's quite a bit of aero damage in this car. But we'll have to see if repairing that will definitely help your speed. And we'll get a good litmus test of it here with Derek Justice, as you see him in the middle of 1 and 2 getting shoved there. Green flag is back out. And you see they're all over the back bumper of him. Is that help there trying to make that outside lane work, but it looks like Justice just not in a good position right there. He falls a little bit, and new race leader out front is able to nose ahead. That is Lucas Plosel, who's able to take the race lead.
I believe for Justice was able to get a wing change. That's why he was able to have some more pit stop time compared to the rest of the pack there. As now, we'll have to see if that's going to end up helping him here. He's got Butler, who's willing to push him here. It's just a matter of how Butler now plays this, because we know Butler likes to be the lead car. Just seems like he can't push Justice completely forward with momentum. If anything, that line, as talked about, is getting checked up a little bit through the corners. 169 on the corner exits. Already pushing their way up to 172, up to 174 on the bump drafts, the bottom line into the corners.
174, and that's about where they stall out. Again, these cars are in 5 gears. Everybody's already at the top of that 5th gear, trying to get anything they can out of it. Obviously, that bump draft helping a little bit as we have another crash here. Caution flag is back out, and it is for a huge wreck here in 3 and 4. It was actually Ryan Naraki who came barreling in well after the fact, but one car flipping into the outside wall. It was the 87 of Clint Roberts, and it looks like poor Brandon Hawken may have gotten back in, but no, that's Ryan Pandashio, similar paint scheme to him. He gets rolling in through, another car sliding on the apron. It looks like Ethan Quarter gets a piece of it as well. So another big wreck and another little bit of damage for a handful of cars.
And this was just a simple mistake that can happen in any type of race car, essentially. 2 drivers wanting to fight for the same piece of real estate, Blake. Quarter wanted to jump to the middle from the bottom line. Clint Roberts wanted to jump from the top to the middle line and become the 3rd car in that line. They both converged, and the hardest contact goes up to the top line as they barrel roll down the racetrack. Ryan Pantasio getting some significant contact. Jeremy Clapper. Just not enough time for a majority of the drivers to stop here with those speeds. The only drivers towards the back who were able to fully stop there and avoid everything, I think, proper was Andrew Hardcastle and as well Isaac Johnson.
They're rolling in, and again, this is a long race. We are barely a quarter of the way through 125 laps, and already we see a couple of cars that will likely have both of their fast repairs done. So we'll take an onboard shot right here at a look at this one. You see the congestion there in 3 and 4. One car hard and up and into the fence, and it's being able to calmly skip on by there to avoid that accident. See the orange car there up in the fence, but this is a long race. I'm surprised that it seemed like everything was pretty tame those first couple of laps, Justin, but since then you would think that we're running a shorter heat. Everybody's still racing very aggressively up at the front.
It's been crazy to say the very least, and I think that's just with the tempo of some of the drivers towards the front. Justice and Brady known for being more on the aggressor marks, and I think at this point some of those drivers are saying, you know what, it's time to go towards the back here, as again drivers are electing to sacrifice track position based on what they've seen. They're not liking what they're seeing. And the interesting thing is for Plusso in particular in the 44, strategy has worked out so far. Top 5 right here under the lights as a majority of the drivers now make their way towards the pit lane here. So track position will be kept here. And many more still have damage that is going to hamper them the rest of this race until they use the fast repair. It's been intriguing so far, but this is towards what we were potentially expecting with some crazy racing tonight with these machines.
It is crazy, and one thing I'm really surprised about is how many drivers came down pit road basically when we didn't have any type of run going. We had maybe 2 laps, I think, there is all we really had under green flag before these drivers came in, and yet everybody decided to come in aside from Derek Justice. So I'm kind of interested to see, I guess tires matter at some point. If it's enough for us to go 2 or 3 laps for drivers to give up their track position, I think it's worth something. Although, I mean, we talk about track position here. It seems like it's relatively easy to at least get up into the top 10, and you just get such huge runs that losing it may not be the end of the world. But still surprised to see how many drivers elected to come down pit road when we didn't really have much of a run there. So interesting to see how everybody decided to do that, and of course Derek Justice, who has a little bit of damage, trying to stay up front.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He's up front, and we've seen how hard he's been trying to push to get up here. I don't think he's going to give this up easily here. But here's the thing. He's got Sean Butler, who's also someone who doesn't like to give up positioning. So this is going to be entertaining up towards this front row once more. I'm keeping my eye, though, on some of the drivers who just came down and here got more tires, topped off for the track position, like Brady and company, who are going to want to then in turn, once they feel like it, get back up to the front. So it's going to be a chess match now of how the strategies play out. It's similar to what you see at a short track even. When do you take the tires? What position are you in for the track position? How is it going to play out for the track position? It's similar to that tonight.
You bring up a good point. It is very similar to that in a short track, Justin. So field under the control of Derek Justice says he'll increase from his pace speed that was 169 miles an hour and get up to about 175 as they work here into 1 and 2. Sean Butler able to get back down to the bottom of the racetrack, or at least he did for a moment. Here comes Brendan Mertz, the Kool-Aid machine, getting to the back of Derek Justice. He'll stick in line, and you see how quickly that bottom line forms up. 4 cars strong. Butler, nothing he can do there on the high side. As now here comes Quarter. He's going to try to look for a third lane and try to make that work.
Got some repairs done, it looks like, on that caution flag, so we'll see how things now fare. Quickly, obviously, wanting to get back to the front. Same can be said for Kenny Brady, who ducked down to the pit lane, is already back up to 7th position.
Back up to 7th, and I think that just goes to show you how either one, tires matter, or two, you can just easily make up that track position, so there's no need to worry about losing it as we come across here just short of reaching lap number 40 here of 125 at the legacy version of the Texas Motor Speedway. Blake McCandless, Justin Prince, as well as Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer for coverage of tonight's running of the Pop Shot Game Ready Corn 300K for round number 4, the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it is run on Fridays. Again, no calm up front, still 3 wide for the race lead. Justice, Butler, and now Brady up top.
Oh, and this could get ugly once again as these drivers are really getting squirrely up here once more. Not liking what I'm seeing once again. It's another bit of a bump draft up towards the top, and some of the drivers are using that apron now, and this race is there to go.
And there goes Kenny Brady as he is up and into the fence, and the caution flag is out once again as we were just about to complete lap number 40 in this race, and we've seen time and time again. Bump draft's gone awry, doesn't work out. Brady gets the bad end of a bump from Ethan Quarter, and there's nothing he could do about that. Tried to save it, hits the wall, and after that, this car really seems to like going airborne, and Brady destroys the front end of that race car. May have tagged another driver, I believe in Andrew Hardcastle, that may have gotten a piece of him as well, but we'll take another look at it right here.
Actually gets a little bit of help too right there from Michael Frisch to the left rear. That causes him to get so squirrely with that bump draft into the corner. Does get into the side of Hardcastle as well, and that's obviously going to be a fast repair how it'll be used there. Tough break again, but it's what happens when you try and be aggressive like that with these types of runs, right? You're going to see this right here. Great push from behind, just too close trying to squeeze down. Almost trying to squeeze down like a side draft with a stock car.
Not much side draft in these things, but also just trying to make that line there up top as absolutely short as possible. Got a little bit of an unfriendly bump there from Ethan Quarter. That sends him around as we see another round of pit stops here under the caution flag. About 4 or 5 cars staying out, and the rest of the field electing to come down and at the very least get their tires replaced. So again, we continue to see the importance in what these drivers are doing in tires. 3 cars still scored a lap down. Brandon Hawken will actually be the recipient of the lucky dog. So Hawken, after taking that early tow, he is back onto the lead lap. Ryan Pandashio has scored 2 laps down, and Jeremy Clapper has not made his way back out in his Ducks gaming machine. He right now has scored 7 laps down, but other than that, every driver here tonight is at least on the lead lap. It looks like Kenny Brady was able to get a fast repair, so he'll still be back in this, and we're kind of reaching that point in the race here, Justin. Maybe everybody was being aggressive with that fast repair in their back pocket, but for the most part, I think there's a lot of drivers who have already used that up to this point.
Absolutely, and I'm running out of ways to describe how to play this at this rate, because if you've already used the faster pair with 82 laps to go this time by, you are in massive trouble. On the bright side, for Summer Championship competitors, they're in a good situation, to say the very least. And keep in mind, we are getting towards where the headlights are going to turn on these race cars, too.
And think about that, but you're exactly right. We are, at least local time, 7:13 in sim. And, of course, you see the sun continue to set behind the grandstands here at Legacy Texas Motor Speedway. So in a short while, we will see these lights turn on, and of course that changes a lot to what these drivers see, and obviously in their mirror, much easier to pick out these race cars and where they go. It's a lot different when you're able to see. So we'll see taillights and we will see the headlights turn on here in just a few moments. So I believe we'll get the one to go this time by. Still just about past the third way mark of this race, and wouldn't you know it, points leader, haven't really talked about him much in this 125 lap event so far. Tristan Hagenstein, he has the race lead.
Up plus 19 positions as well. So just has been able to play the strategy well so far. I think, again, just wants to try and see what happens by staying out front. It's only a couple laps difference, and some of the drivers only took a little bit of fuel, keep in mind, as well. Butler, Williams, Painter, Johnson in particular get themselves up in front. The back half of the field, 13th on back, is where, again, I'm keeping my eye on where some of the drivers play the regression levels, because those are the drivers who have had some adventures so far and where they can't afford to be over aggressive now. You be over aggressive now, your race is done.
Exactly. We may see a little bit of a tamer field out here, although there's plenty of drivers out here. I don't think they're out here for points. They're just out here to have a good time. So if they wreck them up, you know, it won't be anything lost to them. I think that's why we've seen seen the type of racing up to this point. So green flag back out. Tristan Hagenstein has controlled the field. Ethan Quarter, we know he's been awfully aggressive in this one. He'll settle in there in second place, and then they're side by side back there for fourth between Sean Butler and Jake Poulin.
And already a couple drivers pulling the ejector seats here. That's Isaac Johnson going down to the apron to get out of the traffic. And again, don't blame him with the way this race is played out, right? But I think this is going to be where you're going to have to keep an eye on Butler yet again, because this is Butler's wheelhouse. Try and get to the front. Try and control the front. Hagenstein, he's been aggressive in wanting to control the front in a lot of these races as well when he's got help. And Poulin is that help.
A couple of cars go to the apron here, and they will duck out of line as well. Jack Painter and Tyler Williams, they elect to go to the back and will try to at least watch this pack from a safer distance, as you still see them not really calming down from what we've seen. Here comes Michael Frisch. He's got no help. He's trying to make that third line work without anybody to go with him. Now he has a partner out there willing to try and push him forward. That is Derek Justice. So we see Jake Poulin, he goes to the back as they try to make this third line work, as they look about a staggered four wide for just a moment.
Yeah, he is way down to the bottom. Really wants to back up, doesn't like what he's seen again, because every single time this third line seems to have popped up, it's led to a disaster. And I think based on the trends, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens once more. Michael Frisch, surprisingly, though, wants to be that lead car on that top line and wants to be on the aggressive motion. As look at that.
Well, he was able to get a nice shove from Derek Justice, enough to clear himself down and get control of the race lead. So you saw right there, no, Justice gets tagged by Kenny Brady, and Justice is around, and I think that is going to perhaps be the night for both Justice and Brady as they get tagged here in the tri-oval. It looks like both cars going to sustain some pretty significant damage there. Clint Roberts got tagged in it as well. Justice obviously took some barrel rolls here down the front straightaway, but a bump draft yet again gone wrong. Bring us out the caution flag once again.
Gone wrong and then some, as it's going to be with the back diffuser just clipping the left side of the diffuser way off center in the first place here, trying to get the push. Ends up sending Justice squirrely, and to the barrel roll goes Derek Justice. Can say on the radio, though, he was having a lot of fun while flipping upside down.
Well, it's quite a view there from inside that Riley DP to be flipping there. So I'm sure it wasn't boring for Derek Justice to try and make his way through right there. You saw a couple of drivers who had made their way to the back of the field, perhaps sensing that something was brewing. You see many of them go down pit road or get through the grass to try and go through. I think we broke the flip counter in this race. I think that's a pretty good observation by our producer, Zach Johnson, as you see the ride on board one more time from Derek Justice's perspective. Unfortunately, perspective you may not see a whole lot of in this race because Derek already had his fast repair once, and I believe that car is just about done. Kenny Brady in the same situation as well. So as these drivers work their way down pit road, as we come around to reach about the 50 lap mark in this race, we'll go side by side here on STN. You won't miss a minute of the action.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12 Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Back with you here on STN. Blake McCandless, Justin Prince, and Zach Johnson watching the Riley DPs do their best here at Legacy, Texas for 125 laps. We have completed 52 of those laps as we start lap 53 here under caution. We've had quite a few of them. You see 5 of them already, as a couple of drivers starting to work their way out of this field. They've already used a couple of their fast repairs, and they're not going to be able to go much longer. We saw Kenny Brady and Derek Justice that last time by. They took an exit to this race, so 19 cars left on track, 17 on the lead lap. And as we get the one to go, just eat the quarter. Adam Martin, you're 2 out front.
And we said these positions were going to change like popcorn. I don't think we're expecting them to change the way they have with the strategy necessarily tonight. But the way this is all shaping out, it's going to potentially be where we might have a similar start to the 1987 cars at Daytona, where we might finish in the darkness or run in full darkness at this rate. Because as we talked about, the lights are expected to turn on. That's going to be intriguing. And it's similar to some different types of drivers who like to have fun in the darkness at tracks like Talladega.
It is going to be something. Again, Texas Motor Speedway, this being the legacy version of that racetrack, there are no headlights at this track. You can see the lights modeled in the game, but they do not have light in them that shows on the racetrack here with the dynamic weather, with this being the older version of the Speedway. So eventually the headlights on these cars will be what is used to light this racetrack as we get the green flag back underway. Ethan Quarter to the bottom. You saw a couple of cars make their way for the apron as there's about 8 here in this lead pack. The rest of the field strung on out as Ethan Quarter, Adam Martin leading these two lines back to the stripe.
And I think this is going to be a bit more calmer now, knowing that a majority of the drivers have already used up their fast repairs. So I wouldn't be surprised to see these drivers try and stay 2x2 for the most part here. Just try and get themselves in position to continue to run on forward. Just as I say that, though, drivers are trying to form up a third line already about a few car lines back. Merdsda, Hardcastle, Poulin among those drivers trying to wind up some momentum on that top line as here we go.
Well, not only that, we did see the flashing of headlights from one driver. It was directly behind Michael Frisch, their 4th car in the second row, is Tristan Hagenstein, who had his headlights that were flashing here, and that may be how these drivers have to view it. You see, as looks like that yellow machine was doing the same as well. So this should be really interesting to see if we're going to have to constantly kind of flash the lights to see these guys try and keep the racetrack lit in front of them. But lap 56 on the board. Don't tell these guys that they need to be tame. We haven't even reached a halfway point, and yet we are still 3 wide up here at the front of the field with Jake Poulin.
Problem is, no one wants to go up there, and again, do you blame them? With how things have fared out on that third line throughout the race today, we might see it come into play in the closing stages, I think, again. But for now, just try and get yourself in the main pack, I think, has to be the goal for these drivers. Just get yourself into either one of these 2 lines, or if you want to try and stay out of potential trouble, just run single file like the drivers back there are doing right now. Stay out of trouble.
That's the name of the game, as Sean Butler was able to make a move there for the race lead. They're now going to go 3 wide as here comes Michael Frisch to the back bumper. Sean Butler, that inside in that middle lane, they have no help. So Frisch with Butler on the third line trying to make it work. And here comes Sean Butler, Michael Frisch. Again, we've seen it time and time again that 2-car tandem, we'll call it, works so well. But we have also seen a handful of accidents caused by its implementation. As here comes Ethan Quarter, not wasting any time. He's going to go on the apron to try and get by Sean Butler.
I'm just finding it comical some of the lights are blinking at this point from Justin Maloro saying, intimidate, 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 intimidate. Time to intimidate. Turn off the intimidator button. It's that type of fun, it seems, for some of these drivers that they aren't trying to take right now with this. And I think that's why we're seeing this so aggressive as, oh look, the wall is back.
Texas BR here from Sean Butler, Michael Frisch, Tristan Hagenstein, and that line, they have a lot of momentum up there. They're not playing around there. As here goes Butler, they're going to try to make this high line work as they are formed up about 5 cars deep there on the high side, and it is working. They're going to be able to clear the entire bottom line. So Frisch with Butler in the lead. You see Hagenstein, he's the 3rd car in line. Poulin and Merdsda, your 5 cars, and they are making it work. Texas BR.
Well, there are side forces with the walls, right? And they're picking up the fastest speeds of the night so far. 179 miles an hour into the corners by doing this. And I think the rest of the field just picked up on this. As now there's those headlights. It's similar to Talladega we've seen with the legacy trucks a little bit for some of the drivers. When you get enough drivers who will willing to do it, hey, you can make it work.
You can. Maybe it's the drop in temperature. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Maybe it's just the drivers that you have linked up that are able to do a good enough job pushing to try to make spots up there. But you see Jake Poulin there on the inside. Lap traffic there for Jake Poulin. Getting off the pit road, he may have lost a little bit of time. But for now, they have moved up to the very top of this racetrack to find all that speed. And Butler, Frisch, Hagenstein, Merdsda, I mean, this is getting reminiscent of the Daytona 500 this year. Everybody going up to the top side, and right now the bottom just not able to form up and make anything work.
Yeah, not quite yet, as now they're trying to utilize the middle line. In fact, here and getting a little bit three wide, in fact. They're starting to slam each other as this is the danger. Slamming the wall, and now the 68 has done that. Significant right front damage.
Oh, and Mertz is going to get turned there in the middle of 1 and 2, and the caution flag is going to come out. It looks like barreling in there is Andrew Hardcastle. He gets a fair amount of damage out of that. And that is what we saw once again. Another situation where 3 wide happens, and Adam Martin, and it looks like Brennan Mertz got turned there by Ethan Quarter, but there was a lot of neck code in that one. It was about half a lane as Mertz was nowhere close there to Ethan Quarter, and looks like that tags him around.
Yeah, but really, it all really started when he slapped the wall at the start and finish line and completely crushed in the right side. It was just that issue right there. You see that just compounded the whole situation. The tough break for Hardcastle was he locked up the brakes so hard that it just carried him straight into him and completely crushed in his front end after trying to keep the car clean all race. Hardcastle's now in a situation where he's got massive suspension damage from the slide. As here's that hit to the wall that causes all this checking up that leads the bottle up.
You see how detrimental that damage is. It causes that stack up, and then obviously Mertz gets tagged around by the airwaves here as he is spun around here in turn 1. That will take us to the halfway point of this race as we work under yet another caution flag here. We'll have to see how many drivers still have that fast repair in their back pocket, or how many are really going to be flying blind here. They're going to have to try and limp their car home to the end. It was actually nice to see Jeremy Clapper out here on the racetrack. He was scored 9 laps down, but apparently he had that fast repair in tow, so I guess he spent that many laps fixing his race car, didn't take the fast repair, and now he's back on the track 9 laps down. So I don't know if he took it or if he just took the length of the repair, but nevertheless, Clapper at least trying to get back on track, make up some laps. He did already pass Derek Justice and Kenny Brady, who will not see the checkered flag, but regardless, a nice little effort there from Clapper to try and get his race car out there.
It's important to remember to check it if you want to use it, and I think the reason it wasn't checked is you also don't want to leave it checked, if you get what I mean. Because, let me put it this way, Blake. Say you're in a situation where you take the commitment cone with you, like Jake Pullen just did, and you want to just take the service. You take your pit stop, accidentally use the fast repair, then guess what? You're without it the rest of the race. It's so simple to have it happen early on in a race, where I've seen several different competitors do that over the course of their iRacing careers. I think we've all done it, Blake, at least once, maybe 250 times. So it's something that happens to even the best of us.
Well, I'll be honest, it was really about a year ago where the Pro Invitational happened, and that's really the first time you consistently heard the word fast repair. I'm somebody that just has run too many official stuff, maybe just not running as much in leagues, where, you know, I just was never really looking to try and do fast repairs. They were just never part of the conversation, so it definitely is an adjustment, especially if you're not used to having them available to you, that it is something that each time you go down pit road, no matter how little damage you get, you always want to make sure if you don't want to use it, you need to leave it unchecked, and that's just something that is so unique to sim racing and iRacing, just because of how different it is. Again, it's something that in a lot of racing you never have to worry about it, but obviously in this series right here, being at a plate track, they want to keep more of the field out there for longer periods of time, and so it's something that you definitely have to be aware of, because you definitely don't want to bank on having it and then at the end of the race you're looking for it and it's not there, it's definitely something you got to keep in the back of your mind the whole time. So lights are off on the pace car as Ethan Quarter, Tyler Williams will be your top two competitors. Looks like, looking back through the field, nobody else has gone a lap down. Jake Poulin now one lap down. He'll have one more trip around to try and be the lucky dog to finally get back on the lead lap. But otherwise, still 18 cars on the lead lap, 19 on track. And we'll see here if things calm down at all. Will we see the high line become the dominant line again? That was interesting to see.
Yeah, I thought we were at Talladega for a moment, the way things were shaping out. One of the new dynamic track adjusted tracks as well, possibly. It was interesting. Let's put it that way. But keep in mind, you mentioned track temperature. 65 degrees now is that track temp. 62 degrees Fahrenheit is the air temp. So it is getting cooler and cooler as this track continues to go into darkness here.
We'll see how it changes here as you see some drivers continuing to flash their lights at the back of the pack. Green flag is out once again. Quarter and Williams, your top two. Not a great restart there for that third line, but they get formed up nose to tail pretty quickly. And right from the get-go, Michael Frisch pushing to the outside, trying to get that third line already back into play.
And Malillo, meanwhile, continues to blink away with the lights. I think Malillo just likes to blink those lights as they try and get the top line working, instead smash the wall.
You could see the sparks off of that one. It was Michael Frisch who tagged the wall here. I can't tell you how many cars, if they're on the outside, they are likely hitting the wall, but that's not going to stop them from going out there. As here comes Sean Butler, who's going to go to the wall there with Michael Frisch, and it looks like Hagenstein is going to be a part of that train as well. And going up to the top side to try and block it. Here comes Butler now to the inside. They're four wide entering turn 3. Plenty of room to do that in these cars. Now Butler gonna get in line too wide as he'll push the lap traffic of Jake Poulin right there, try to get them past the race lead, and it looks like they might be able to do it.
And I think that top line, at the very least, a couple drivers want to do it again. It's just a matter, again, of how comfortable do they feel with having the lucky dog car. Yes, that is Jake Poulin, who is leading the top line. So this is going to be fun. I think the answer is Sean Butler is not comfortable with the lucky dog being the top line runner.
Well, interesting to see the move that Butler just pulled off now. Obviously, he's going to get passed here by Tristan Hagenstein, but riding in line, he was able to cut all the way down to the bottom and clear Jake Poulin by the exit of the corner. So perhaps just a little bit of a testing move right there from Butler. Perhaps keep that in his back pocket until we're later on in this race. But again, trying to learn here with the new weather. The lights are on. Still over 50 laps to go, so plenty of time to experiment out here if you want to try some things as we continue to work towards the end of this race.
I'm keeping my eye on Malillo as well in that 53 machine. He's been slowly but surely trying to stay out of the trouble and stone, moving his way through the pack. Eventually those lights are going to burn out, you'd have to think, right? He can't keep blinking them this entire run.
That's one thing about iRacing. You don't have mechanical failures without damage. So unless he somehow noses that race car, I think he's just going to keep. Going all night. And you know what? I wouldn't blame him. Whatever can irritate your competition, any advantage you can get, I would keep those things flashing all night if I had the opportunity to. So flash on, Justin Malillo.
I mean, again, it's a good intimidation button to basically drop your opponents insane. So why not?
If you're fine with the potential backlash, I think that's really all you have to do is, oh no, one car around at the front of the field, and it is Ethan Quarter who goes up and flies, nearly tags Barney there in the flag stand, just a couple of inches away from hitting him, and it's a wreck that keeps on going. Where's the Applebee's commercials? He finally comes to rest here as they about to enter turn 1. Ethan Quarter, what a wild ride as he gets shoved up into the outside wall here through the tri-oval on the high side again.
He'll be helped with a bit from Michael Frisch, in fact, from the 58 again, and wow. That front end just worked like basically handstands for a somersault.
End over end, and it just doesn't stop. It just keeps on going as you continue to almost, I mean, he wrecked for half a mile, it seems, right here as he finally comes to rest. He is trying to drive the thing back around, but you could see him right now on the apron. That car is just all sorts of jacked up right now, completely skewed to the wrong side. He's trying to get back to pit road. I'm not sure if he has a fast repair. If you're a quarter fan, I'm sure you're hoping that he does, but I mean, this is enough of a task here, just trying to drive this thing on the apron. I mean, look, this thing does not want to comply with anything he tries to do.
Yeah, it's basically completely demolished, the suspension, so that's why it's so difficult here with the crab walking. It's been impressive that he's been able to keep it off that inside wall. In particular, it hasn't snapped it around with how bad this damage is right now, but everyone else in front of him has come down to the pit lane. It's exactly what Jake Poon was looking for too, to get the lucky dog.
I think it's safe to say at this point the flip counter is in shambles, absolute shambles right now. So we'll take a look at some of the upcoming events that we have here live on STN over the next little bit. Of course, it starts with tomorrow night, the FTF Grand National Series round number 7 from Road Atlanta. Again, those cars like to tackle some of these oddball tracks you don't typically see run throughout the Cup Series season. Well, we're going to cover that tomorrow night. That'll roll off at 10 p.m., so just under 24 hours. The FTF Grand National Series presented by Bar Visuals will roll off from Road Atlanta tomorrow night. And then, of course, next Friday night, the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League on Fridays, presented by STN. That will roll off from the Michigan International Speedway. And again, coverage of that will kick off just like it did tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time next Friday night. And then more FTF racing next Saturday night at Bristol. The FTF Grand National Series. If we haven't seen enough short tracks in that series or enough wrecks, we may get a couple more of them in round number 8 at Bristol Motor Speedway. So it'll be interesting to see what those drivers do there. And I believe that's on the dirt, is it not?
Yes, sir.
All right, so obviously they're at Bristol, and we'll be going dirt tracking for the first time in that series. And of course, with the release of Bristol Dirt, everybody's been, at least from what I've seen, having a really good time with it. Seems like it'll be a good amount of fun to not only race in the sim, but to spectate in real life. So looking forward to that and seeing how that track fares in FTF style.
I'm honestly yet to try it quite yet, but I'm curious to see how these drivers race on the dirt in particular, because it takes a lot of practice, let's put it that way, to run on dirt. And not sure about you, Blake, but I'm still needing to figure out how to drive in a straight line on dirt, let alone make the corner.
I have not put, admittedly, I've not put any laps down at Bristol Dirt in any stock car. For one, I don't like, if I'm going to race dirt, I just don't like racing the stock cars on there. They don't race like a dirt car would. And, you know, that's not without reason. They're a couple thousand pounds, and they're not meant to drive on dirt. So typically I try to avoid those. And if I'm going to race dirt, I'm going to run a UMP modified or a big block or something that's meant to drive on there. But nevertheless, still a pretty unique challenge that those cars have at Bristol. And again, I think in real life, those things will really put on a really, really fun show.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm curious how the Cup cars in particular run there. Of course, the trucks have run on dirt for about a decade or so now. And I'm curious how they react to Bristol as well, with the many Cup drivers in the railroad event taking part in that side of things. Don't forget, Knoxville as well was on the calendar for that, and this year's eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying series for the start of the second round, for the snake split round.
I'm not looking forward to that either, but of course the problem is getting there first. So we'll hope that we can be talking about that problem. It'll be a good problem to have if I have to run at the Knoxville Dirt in a truck in a couple of months. So Sean Butler going to get us rolling here as we come down to 47 laps to go. Yeah, no, it goes back to 46. My bad. 46 laps to go here from Texas. Butler, Martin, Painter, your top three.
Bit of a slower restart this time for some of these drivers, but here comes the run from Tristan Hagenstein. And we're back to that 3-wide trend once more, expecting full darkness here in the next half hour or so to an hour. So pressure is on here for these next 45 laps to make sure the visibility is going to be there. As big push from Butler to the back end of Mike McConville with a good recovery.
And it's certainly something that I would not be surprised if we saw darkness. It may not get fully there. We got about, if we're running 30-second lap times, 45 laps, we can do the math and figure out that, it's anywhere from about 23, 24 minutes left in this race at the least. So we may see that darkness come into play here as we get towards 8 o'clock local in-sim time here at the Texas Motor Speedway. But we'll continue to see. You see that kind of bubble of light that follows the pack, and you can definitely see the difference out in front of the pack and behind where the light is and where it's not. So definitely starting to get a bit darker here at Texas, but out front is exactly where you want to be. Mike McConville, who started on the pole, went to the back because of an accident, has somehow found his way back to the front.
Now he's back to that comfortable position again, leading that bottom line, and at this point I'm just trying to stay up there as here comes Blinkerson, who gets some contact, and that stopped the blinking, so it found something.
Not for very long. He's back at it. And he's got a partner in it too. See there on the bottom, Clint Roberts joins in there, and as they still can try to continue. We've seen the top line work. Now we're looking at everybody going back to the very bottom of the racetrack. Is McConville, Hagenstein now. He's going to poke to the outside. We've seen Sean Butler. He's been one of the best pushers in this field, as they're going to try to make that second line work. Two-car tandem formed up really well there. Hagenstein, a bit of a wiggle out of him, but Butler going to shove him forward and with a ton of speed give Tristan Hagenstein your points leader. Race lead up front when it matters.
Oh, and here we go again with the top line starting to form up. The thing is, Butler wants to be that lead car, and the tough thing is, I don't think he necessarily has the help to be able to fully get to that lead car on the top line. So this is going to be a pivotal moment here, I think, for some of these drivers if this continues to run the way it's going here. You never know, though, with the trends here, especially as you can see the cars are getting squirrely yet again in the middle of the quad oval.
Ethan Quarter into the grass. We saw Adam Martin get into the back of that car on the outside, and Tristan Hagenstein really upset that race car. So again, the tri-oval has just been the trouble spot all evening. You see Jake Poulin there making his way off of the apron, or onto the apron rather, as he was trying to get out of what he thinks may be a potential accident at the front of this field. Again, many of these drivers, they don't have that fast repair to use here. Is Sean Butler, what a shove here, what a run from the 53 of Melillo as they go to the race lead. That two-car tandem formed up and strong there for Butler and Melillo, as they will protect the bottom of the racetrack now. Not a whole lot happening here on the high side as Lucas Ploso now. He'll try to take a crack at it.
And it's been impressive what he's been able to do today, Blake. He's tried strategy to get track position. It's worked out fairly well for him. He's been willing to dominate towards that top line, and now he's got that massive run to be able to try and lead some laps here. It seems like it's similar to what we were talking about. The run's going back and forth now at this point of the race, now that things have settled down and drivers are willing to run 2 wide rather than the 3 wide at the moment.
2 and 3 ride all the way around this racetrack, but right now it is 2 wide up front, as Martin still all over the place here in the tri-oval. A couple of drivers trying to figure out where they're going to run, as Martin still trying to get that top line to work. Ploso has cleared back down to the bottom. Sean Butler, again, he's probably been one of the best pushers in the field. He and Ryan Naraki both have really flexed their muscles here on how they can push those race cars, but Butler wants to have a crack at the race lead. You see how many cars are up there in the middle. Wouldn't be surprised to see that lane really start rolling as Butler going to take the race lead here away from Plotzel. And now Butler to the bottom of the racetrack, Hagenstein in the middle.
And these drivers are starting to set their personal best lap times as well. The fastest lap so far set by Ryan Araki at 29.4 so far. That is already 3/4 quicker than some of the practice laps from earlier on tonight with a much hotter track temperature. So we are seeing that range where drivers can now try and set up potential fastest lap runs to try and get some valuable bonus points for the championship standings.
That is something to keep in mind. Leading laps, of course, you do get the bonus points for that. So I'm sure what's on a lot of these drivers' minds that are running at the front of the field. And, of course, the fastest lap is a part of that as well. And when you talk about these drivers getting up to higher speeds, it's just very simple. We're cooling down here. The sun's continuing to go down. Track temperature is cooled off to 65, which is several degrees cooler, about 5 or 6 degrees colder than what we started this race at. So this track continuing to go through a transition. It's not changing the speed so much at the front of the field. You're still seeing about 30.5s, 30.6s at the front of the field. See one car there, that is Malillo that's going to go to the back as he drops onto the apron. But particularly for those cars that are in the middle of the pack, when they get that run, when they don't have to lift there from running into the back of the leaders, those cars, those are the ones who are really able to show their speed here and put down those fast laps.
Exactly, and those points could be valuable down the line for some of these competitors. Keep in mind for those looking for a top 10 run from what we've seen from some of these crazy races, to say the very least. But now it's one of our longest runs of the race so far. And it looks like some of the drivers starting to break into smaller packs now, that there's different momentum breaks starting to build up, and some of the drivers inside that top 7 in particular are trying to break away a little bit.
They're trying to do so there on the top line, but it seems like every time you get the lead, you want to try to clear to the bottom, and it wasn't able to happen that time for Adam. Martin couldn't quite get up to the race lead, as now you have about 3 cars formed up there, all tandeming as Adam Martin gets a little bit of contact, perhaps, from Sean Butler. Nevertheless, he shoots up the racetrack. That'll completely take the organization away there from the top side, so Martin will fall on back. Top 3 single file on the bottom. It is your top 3 in Hagenstein, Butler, and Lucas Plotzel. Right now we're out front, going unchallenged there. But here comes Adam Martin on the high side.
Great back and forth so far for some of these drivers now this run. And I think some of them are now thinking about how they're going to have to plan out these runs, because as you can see, if you've got enough drivers on the top line, you can get moving for the race win, but the problem is going to be getting yourself in position to be that one who gets that big push, I think, for the race lead here, Blake. That's going to be something now in these final few laps or so that drivers are going to have to start plotting and planning for if they want a shot at this race win.
Another thing mentioning, a couple of drivers have fallen off the lead pack. Ryan Naraki, Jake Pullen, Justin Malillo, they have fallen out of the draft, and one car spinning here on the front straightaway, and it is going to be enough to warrant a caution flag. Doesn't look like it was too bad of an accident, but one driver was on the apron. A bunch of smoke went up. Ryan Pandascio checked up for it, and it looks like Tyler Williams did not, as he really had nowhere to go. He ran into the back of Pandascio, and once again, we are under the caution flag for probably the only true single car wreck that we've seen so far tonight.
And I think the first driver was the race leader, Tristan Hagenstein, who was trying to get a push from behind from Butler, who was trying to keep the speed up in the 170s, keep in mind. Just didn't line it up. You'll see right here a bit squirrely in the first part, then gets squirrely a second time. Great save here, but right behind there's that checkup as they were expecting more trouble. Hit from behind as said, and around goes the 63 with the help from behind.
And this happened so fast, and you can see the checkup trying to slow down there and anticipating Well, when you see a car out of shape on the apron, perhaps heading for the grass, it's just a natural instinct to lift there a little bit. Unfortunately, Williams not able to see that in time, as everybody, or roughly everybody, coming onto pit road. Off of pit road first, we're going to have a change for the lead as Sean Butler loses it, and gaining it is Adam Martin. You also had Brandon Hawken. He did not come down pit road, so he will be the race leader unless he comes down and gets some service this time by. But I'd be surprised this late on. I think that, you know, Hawken may be staying out here with kind of the lap starting to wind down.
Being the only person to do so would be the interesting part, I think, for me, as now blinks the lights. We'll see if he ends up going down here and sacrifice the track position. No, he's going for it. He's going to try and see if the strategy works. I'm curious how this is going to play out now with our longest run of the race, with the amount of laps put on those tires.
I think it'll be all right, but that was our longest run that we've had of the night. About 21 laps is the amount of green flag laps that Brandon Hawken has on his tires that everybody else does not have, obviously just coming off of pit road. So Hawken about 20 laps older on his machine, and we'll see if he can hang on and try to make that work up front here. Still working under the caution flag. Lights are on the pace car and on and off on some of these cars that you're looking on your screen for. As you know, why don't we pull Ethan Quarter up here for a little bit of a chat. Ethan, it looked like you had a pretty eventful night out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was super fun out tonight. We made some moves that worked. We made some moves that didn't work. Ultimately, it ended up with me in the air, and I just forgot to check my fast repair, so we had 40 minutes required, and I wasn't going to sit through that. I don't think I had enough time for that.
That's unfortunate there. I was wondering if it was maybe a case where you used it when you didn't mean to, but nevertheless, you see that was a nasty hit right there as you continue to roll through. That was probably one of the longest wrecks that I've seen as far as distance covered.
Well, you know what they say, the long one continues at Texas, so I don't know how I limped that back. I didn't even touch the wall, I don't think. So we're going a very fast 50 miles per hour, but yeah, just didn't work out.
Yeah, I think the most impressive part of that drive was just how you managed to get that thing back to pit road, because it became a real handful there. But anybody want to give a shout out to, a thanks to, before we get going back under green here?
Just shout out to my teammate Lucas Plessel. I'll be cheering him on for the win.
All right, we'll see if he can get it done. He'll restart in the 4th position here, as we're going to take just a finally 24 laps to go. So not a whole lot of time. We'll see if Lucas Plessel can get it done. And Ethan, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Driver of the 818 going out early in this race, or at least before the end of it, before we reach the checkered flag. Green flag is back out. 24, now 25 laps to go here from Legacy, Texas. Brandon Hawken on the bottom of the racetrack. Not a whole lot of help as Sean Butler and Adam Martin get formed up there on the top.
Owen Hawken really pushing up tight. In fact, this is going to be dangerous.
Oh, it is, and there goes Martin into the wall. Michael Frisch gets tagged in it as well. And there is the caution flag. That didn't look very good. And Adam Martin gets turned around there. Just a bad bump draft gone wrong from Sean Butler gets him turned around.
I can see that coming the second. Brandon Hawken pushed up the racetrack a little bit and trying to push up a little bit there. That was going to be the result, likely because of how tight those drivers were driving. Just a slight push-up, I think it was the cause there from Mike McConville, though, in that situation where tries to follow the back end of Hawken, trying to push, and just is going to bobble at the end of the straightaway here. You're going to see right about here, just the bobble comes into the left rear. It goes of Martin. Martin slides up, and Michael Frisch, who practiced running backwards, by the way, before the start of this race, mind you, in warm-ups, ends up having that come to fruition to be able to keep him from getting collected by anybody else.
Certainly good to see. You see on your screen there a lot of damage for Michael Frisch, and you see it kind of form up here. We've seen Butler time and time again. He's been one of the strongest cars to go back to somebody and try to push them forward, gain them some spots, and seemingly out of nowhere, Martin just gets out of shape. Not too bad considering how hard he hit the wall. You see Frisch there trying to roll on by. He gets a little bit of damage, but it just seems really out of nowhere. I don't know if that was a little bit of contact there from the bottom, but you see, oh, there we got it. Second car in line right is there. What gets out of Martin, yeah.
Yep, that's McConville as mentioned there. Nowhere for Frisch to go as the car slid up the racetrack.
That was unfortunate to see. McConville obviously coming up just a little bit there to tag him. But I don't think that wreck is going to do anything to knock anybody else out of this race. 18 cars still on track. It is really just Jeremy Clapper, who we chronicled the fact that I think he had the same issue that Ethan Quarter did earlier. He had his repair, but did not use it and had to sit and wait all that time to get the repairs done. Luckily, aside from Ethan Quarter, he did it early enough in the race that he could at least get back on track. He was 9 laps down at one point. He's the only car that's a lap down, and now he is 6 laps down. So he's got a little ways to go. Not sure if he's going to get the amount of cautions he would need to get back on the lead lap, but all he needs is a few things to happen up front. A couple drivers who don't have a fast repair to go to the garage and be done for the day before Clapper can move up there and perhaps just try to gain some spots. But nice little effort there for Clapper to stick around. It would be difficult to try and run around there 10 laps down, but he's trying to get everything he can out of this day.
Yeah, and you don't blame him from trying to keep on going, because you never know what's going to end up happening, right? Because a vast majority of this field at this rate, I think, has used their fast repairs at this moment. So the interesting thing is Butler also from that situation elect to go to the back, so it's going to be curious to see how Butler plays this from 14th position now, trying to charge his way on forward once more. And for Brandon Hawken, the strategy is still working out well so far. I don't know how long it's going to work for him is the big thing.
Well, if they keep up at this pace, I think it's going to work out. You'd have to imagine the heat cycles and everything will play into Hawkins' favor. Not exactly sure if just having worn tires is really going to slow you down that much, or how much they do wear over the course of a run. But I think if you're Hawken, you're not exactly in a bad spot right now. We're going to take the green flag with 20 laps to go, and you know, this is kind of everything that we've been talking about all night. This is when you really get to implement it. And, you know, I'll tell you what, if you're in one of these race cars, obviously the light helps you see out front, but the cars themselves are still pretty dark, and you know, the lights from your headlights only go so far. If you're on board here from about a car about 10th on back or so, the cars themselves are still pretty dark, and there's not a whole lot of backdrop to them. You can see right there, you see how much the cars kind of blend in with the darkness a little bit. So you have to be careful knowing where everybody is, especially in your mirror, where they are. So still just interesting to see that you're racing in the only section of the racetrack that has some lighting to it. But pace car is off, green flag is out as Barney, draped in darkness now. You'll see him in the light, and we are back here from Texas Motor Speedway. Top two getting formed up. Brandon Hawken, though, still holding the race lead on those old tires.
I think Ryan Pandesino got spun around to the very back of the field. We stay green, however. So the 63's luck continues to go sour at this rate, but towards the front, starting to get crazy once again with the closing stages here. People want to get themselves in position to win this.
trying to use that middle line. Brandon Hawkins scrapes the grass. It's going to check up the middle line. Here comes the points leader, Tristan Hagenstein, able to go out front. He's got help from McConville, who looked to peek a nose outside for a moment, but it looks like he'll file in line right now. The bottom line shoots down to the middle, and McConville's still a great push there to Tristan Hagenstein. He goes low to clear and just does so in time to get in front of Brandon Hawkins. Tight move right there. But again, just a lot of what we're going to see as we cross the stripe this time. 18 to go.
The give or take is still going to start going away for some of these drivers because it's points paying time. If you want to try and win this race, you need to start making those types of moves, especially when we get towards 10 to go, 5 to go. That's where you're going to see the intensity really start to ramp up more so, where drivers, once again, are trying to get that 3-wide line working once more. And we've seen how dangerous that was earlier on in this race.
Yeah, Ryan Naraki with all the momentum, but again, you see the fact that that line nearly washes up into the wall in the tri-oval. We've seen it time and time again. Ryan Naraki now to the race lead. Michael Frisch and Sean Butler, 2 cars trying to make that third line work. Now Naraki's going to get hung out to dry. They are 3 wide for 4 rows deep here at Texas as we start to get down to the end of this thing. They are 4 wide now through 3 and 4.
I don't think that's going to work, though, in the main oval here. Somebody's going to have to give.
Oh, no. 5? No, 5 doesn't work. Michael Frisch is around, and there's the big one.
And that wasn't going to work in 100 lifetimes. Let's put it that way. 4 wide at this track. There's not enough lanes. There are people in the grass trying to make a lane out of that one. That wasn't even going to stick if they made it. Somehow will stay.
Well, you could argue there were even a scattered 5 between Sean Butler, Michael Frisch, Mike McConville, Lucas Plosel, and Jack Painter. It's just one of those things. We found that 3-4 wide, it can work at this racetrack, but it is not going to work here on the front straightaway. We take one more look at it, and you see Jack Painter there trying to avoid everybody else. He's in the grass, and everybody else seeing that anticipates him washing back up into traffic. And I think this is going to be the end of plenty of nights here in this wreck. I think a lot of fast repairs. I don't see too many left for some of these guys.
Yeah, some rough hits for some of these drivers, but just nowhere to go. Keep in mind, Frisch had just used his fast repair from the previous incident as well. But again, there's not enough space for this. Somebody had to give, and just no one wanted to give up anything there in terms of that momentum.
Nobody wanted to give that up. We've reached that point in the race that you're not going to see a whole lot of give and take. It's going to be a lot of take right now. But unfortunately, as we work under the caution flag again, a lot of nights more than likely coming to an end after that wreck right there. Take another look at it right here. This is all the way up at the wall, which again, it's hard to see that wall with the way the lighting is. It's not exactly, we've seen so many drivers kind of naturally just wash up into the wall there on the high side. I think that's even more likely with just how difficult it is to see. You have to be looking directly at that wall to have the light, and there's never really a point there on the front straightaway where you're kind of directly pointing at it.
I'm curious on the thought process again on the grass here and trying to make that stick too, because the grass doesn't have a lot of traction, and there's obviously not a lot of visibility for the pavement as well. So same can be said for the pit lane as the rest of the drivers finish up their fast repairs. On the bright side, if you had just the back wing damage, you can get a brand new wing. It takes some time, as seen from a low about 43 seconds. As long as you complete it in time, you're in a good spot. For the rest of the drivers who may have side damage, they're in big trouble.
They are. Well, we're going to go side by side, and when we get back, we're going to take you all the way to the checkers as we have under 15 to go here from Legacy, Texas.
40 of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? Interlagos, Barcelona, Imola, Silverstone, Road Atlanta, Montreal, Spa, Nürburgring, Le Mans, Monza. This is racing for immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup.
Back with you here as we are finally draped in darkness as we have crossed 8 p.m. local time in the sim here at the Texas Motor Speedway. I mean, good grief, it almost looks like it snowed there on the backstretch, and that's about it. As Blake McCandless, Justin Prince set to get you set up for the final 11 laps here tonight in the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it's on Friday. Running of the Pop Shot Game Ready Corn 300K. Tristan Hagenstein, Brandon Hawken, your top two, Ryan Naraki, and Sean Butler in row number 2. 17 cars on the lead lap. Green flag back in the air. So we're ready to settle it here at Texas.
Good launch once again from Hagenstein, and he's played this out very well. It's the matter of can he keep it up to the front, but remember, Sean Butler is going to be very aggressive here. They're actually ditching Hagenstein in factory wide.
There are 3 they may look for here, and Butler will do that as Hagenstein falls back. No help for him. Butler goes to the middle, Naraki to the bottom in front of Hagenstein for the lead. And here comes Michael Frisch. Thought that he may be damaged and out of this thing, but apparently he had the fast repair in the back pocket. And what a push he gives to Sean Butler there through 1 and 2. And that'll give him the race lead. Again, these were the top 2 that formed up that high line the last time it was successful. So we'll see if they're able to do it again. And there they go, right to that second seam in the third line. But here comes Ryan Naraki. He's got a huge shove from Tristan Hagenstein.
Keep in mind that Butler does have some right front damage on his race car. There is some crinkles still on Michael Frisch's car. So those drivers are a bit wounded who are trying to get that respective line working. I'm not quite sure if they're going to have it play out perfectly here. They're trying as hard as they can to keep the speed up, but they're just not quicker than the drivers running 180 at the bottom of the racetrack.
No, right now that top line just not able to overcome the amount of numbers there on the bottom. But again, a huge push to the back of Butler from Michael Frisch is going to give them the race lead, at least for the moment. You see a third car trying to get that third and outside line to work. Brandon Hawken doesn't have a whole lot of help with them, but here comes Mike McConville to try to get that to work. Adam Martin going to the bottom, but he's got no help. Butler goes to the bottom, Frisch to the outside as he gets formed up with Adam Martin. Again, you see how quickly runs come and they go. Helpers fade and get to the back of new friends. Oh, and Martin into Frisch now as they scatter around him. 4 wide is now Frisch into the outside wall. He's going to lose all that track position.
That may take him out of contention at the very least for the next little bit unless he can find some help to wind back up here. But this is going to be a phenomenal finish now. This is where the give or take goes completely out the window now for some of these competitors. If you want to win this race, you're going to need to be cautiously aggressive and do these moves cleanly and properly without getting yourself involved in some trouble.
Have to do it here. 6 laps to go. Brandon Hawken in the lead. Mike McConville with him. Adam Martin with the huge run. You see the second line formed up, but they just don't have a lot of steam cooking right now. As you can see, 2 by 2 throughout about the first 10 cars. There's about a handful in the back. Andrew Hardcastle, Tyler Williams, Isaac Johnson, and Luke Breitschoff, as well as Jeremy Clapper. They are just waiting to see if this pack comes flying apart now as we reach 5 to go. Hawkins still your leader.
And Butler's trying as hard as he can to try and get himself as the lead car on that line. The problem is, it's like an anchor right now that's attached to his right front, and I think that is going to be what's going to really hamper him for any shot. He might be relegated to a pushing role potentially for somebody who tries to flare up to this top line.
Oh no, and there's Michael Frisch around. It's hard to tell and be able to see who that is barrel rolling to the inside. I just know at the front of it, a purple car went around. It was Michael Frisch, and it looks like Ryan Naraki may have gotten tagged as well. So a heavy hit there for Michael Frisch. Another one went flying. It was Jake Poulin that was going through the air. A couple more cars end up involved in this. Jeremy Clapper looks like he may have got a piece of it as well. And the caution flag is out, and it's going to set up an absolutely insane restart here towards the end of this thing.
This is going to be a photo finish potentially under green-white checkered scenario. Now, let's take a look at what happened here. As you see right there, a bit of that flare-up moment with the contact. Michael Frisch gets clipped as Naraki tries to save it, and then calamity.
I was about to say, at this point, you hit the nose on the wall, you lose your headlights. So Frisch, not only is he going to have to race, if he somehow can mangle that car back, you can see he has no way to be able to see in front of him. So I hope that he can keep up with the pack if he can even get that car off of pit road. You see right there a little bit of contact there causes that, and Rocky gets into the right rear quarter panel. There's no quarter panels on these cars, are there? I don't know. It's late. But regardless, Frisch turns around. You see Jake Poulin there. He had kind of been waiting in the back the whole time. Obviously doesn't work out for him. And now we're going to have the first of a potential 5 green-white checkered attempts. Oh, boy.
I'm not quite sure if we're going to need all of them, honestly, because it takes about a full lap for these machines to get wound up. What happens on the last lap, Blake, is going to be something spectacular. It's the matter of what type of spectacular we get.
Well, it just depends on one. Of course, we can get back to the white, and then we'll see it through to the end. Plenty of time to try to make a run on the last lap. The one thing that's just so crazy about this race is how quickly runs come and go, how quickly you can go from being the leader to being 10th in the next corner. How selfish are people going to be? Obviously, if you have somebody to go with you and push you, that's going to be huge here on this last lap as everybody's jockeying for position, being selfish, trying to fend for themselves. So if you can find a partner out there that is at least willing to tango with you until about off of turn 4, you may have a shot at this thing. But again, we'll have to see if we can just get back to the white flag. I think that's going to be the challenge for a lot of these drivers, is just getting back there.
Yeah, especially with that hunger to try and win a race such as this one. I think Hagenstein's going to be one of those drivers hungry to get some help, and quickly. Malo's going to be very aggressive, I think, here, especially with his success on some of the predecessors to the iRacing days here. Keep in mind, he's in 5th position after being involved with damage before. And for Brandon Hawken, this strategy call continues to look smarter and smarter every moment, because he's gone from a lap down to being in position to potentially win this, and he's kept the front of this field in control for much of this second closing stage, or rather the closing stages.
Well, we'll get the 2 to go this time and the 1 to go on the green as we are going to go past the scheduled distance of 125 laps here at Texas, a track that is completely taken over by darkness. Can barely see the skyline here, and I imagine that'll only continue to get worse. The Sunoco sign sticks out in 3 and 4 because of how bright it is, and of course the scoring pylon as well. About the only things lit here at Texas as the lights go off on the pace car. Brandon Hawken, mind you, he had that strategy of staying out on the old tires, and look how well it has worked out for him. Out front and in position, in control of this final restart. Mike McConville started on the pole, worked his way back up through the field. He's been there and competitive all night long. Sean Butler outside of that second row. He's been so competitive and so strong all night long. Does he have what it takes to overcome some bad luck in these FTF races to go to victory lane? But again, the real question, do we get back to the white flag?
And I think mayhem is going to strike here with the way this could finish here. It's the matter again of how and where these moves come in. The apron, I wouldn't be surprised, Blake, will come into play by the time they get to the backstretch.
See if we can make it that far. Pace car going to pull off. This is for all the marbles. Brandon Hawken, Mike McConville, your top 2. Let's see how far we get. Green flag is back in the air. 2 to go here at Texas.
And not a great launch for those drivers up on the top line. In fact, a very poor launch, and Brandon Hawken learned from last time. Bit of contact already.
Oh, and here comes Adam Martin as he hits one guy, and now, oh, here comes Justin Malillo all the way next to the inside wall, and he's going to slowly creep back onto the racetrack. He has the lead. Do we get back to the white? It looks like they're wrecking behind them, and we're not going to reach it. Caution is out.
Oh, and that was close to be able to reach that white flag too, but you knew that something was going to happen the second it was 4 wide on the apron with 2 drivers down there. Just forced the 3 wide, and Brandon Hawken and Mike McConville in particular both got very loose in that situation and made contact in the middle of the corner. Some of the drivers have already lost their lights as a result of some of the hard contact here. I think Mike McConville in particular has lost his front lights on the bar. As we'll take a look at the bar visuals replay, he'll be in 3 and coming into 3 where things got crazy.
See it one more time. Again, drivers trying to get everything they could. I mean, what a move here by Justin Malillo. Yellow car on the bottom next to the Pennzoil machine. I mean, what? This is what we thought we were going to see, and luckily the rest of the field kind of lets him back onto the apron, or back onto the banking, rather. And you see that one car that gets trapped in the middle. A little bit of contact there from the 24 car. Looks like they just weren't able to hang on, so McConville gets some damage. We'll see a couple of cars come down pit road. I can't see whether they're damaged or not because I can't see them unless they have a car directly behind them on pit road. It's hard to see whether they're getting a fast repair or actually if they're okay. But I'm not sure for some of these guys. I think Sean Butler looks like he had his fast repair.
Yep.
But again, it's tough to see unless you have somebody directly behind you because there's just no lighting out here.
He's definitely fixed that front end on that race car at the very minimum. So for Butler, he's going to be a show to keep an eye on this restart rather. If he can get from 10 or so to first, I don't know, and I don't think, Blake, you can necessarily get that far at this point unless you have a massive run and time it up near perfectly where you play those runs. So it's going to be extremely difficult for him at this point.
It's going to be tough, but again, we have the potential for up to 5 of these. We've used up 1. We'll start on attempt number 2. So there could still be a very, very long ways to go in this race, as lights are still on the pace car, so we'll get the 1 to go signal this next time by. But again, with the fact that so many drivers have yet to, or don't really have Any fast repairs left on pit road, we could see a bunch of cars pile up here. We were talking about 18 left on the lead lap for a good portion of the last half of this race. Well, try 13 now. Isaac Johnson scored 3 laps down. Jeremy Clapper has gotten back to 4 laps down, but unfortunately he won't be the lucky dog any longer unless he can pass Isaac Johnson there, and he won't. Johnson's back on the track. Jake Poulin scored 5 laps down. Michael Frisch, you can't even see him on pit road. He is getting repairs in his car, but his headlights are gone. So, I mean, you literally cannot see Michael Frisch getting his car fixed, as now he'll actually exit his car. So we're winding down the numbers here, and we have the potential to wipe out 5, 6, 7, and still have a couple of potential green-white checkers to go.
Yeah, this is going to be where you want to get your popcorn out, pun very much intended, because some of these drivers have made it clear on the radio they're going to send it, to say the least. And I'm not going to be shocked to see the apron come into play again. It's the matter of how aggressive the block has to come into play now from Justin Malone to hold on to the race lead. Because for the past couple restarts, it's been difficult to be able to hold on to the race lead as the control car.
I think one of the worst spots to be in this situation is the race leader. Because you can't go early because they'll just run you down. You go late, you're just kind of a sitting duck. You're just in a really tough spot here being the leader. So Malolo obviously thought that we were going to come to the one to go, that maybe we were going to reach it and he could just fend off for a lap. But it is hard to do with 2 laps to go. And again, the fact that everywhere on this racetrack, especially on the backstretch, is in play. I'm sure Malolo knows how he got the lead and that he may have to defend a similar move. So Justin Malolo, Adam Martin, your top 2. Let's see if we can make it back to the white. Green-white checkered attempt number 2. Not a great restart there for Justin Malillo, who was lagging on back. It was good for Adam Martin, but unfortunately, he's got no help with him. So Malillo with the push, he's going to have the momentum here through 1 and 2, and we'll see what happens here when they get to the backstretch.
Now, if I was him get to the very inside, that's exactly what he's doing.
He gets to the inside. He doesn't get turned by Tristan Hagenstein, who's looking for any way to try and get around him. They're 3 wide behind them. Again, do we get back to the white flag? It looks like we might get there. Guys are wrecking behind, but we have reached the white flag as the rest of the field piles in. About 6 cars left. Malillo, Hagenstein, Martin, your top 3 as they exit off 2.
One Butler's really sending it hard, has some major help now to make it 3 wide for the race lead.
Oh, and now Malillo has no help as they're now 4 wide. Here comes Butler. Contact here, side by side, 3 wide. Butler's going to get shoved up. Here comes Malillo. Martin, here comes Hawken through the grass. And Hawken through the grass is going to pass 2 cars and go to victory lane. Brandon Hawken through the tri-oval wins it.
How? I'm not sure how. Where did he come from, and how did he make that work for that finish?
Brandon Hawken was 7th at the line and won this race.
Wow.
Absolutely crazy there. Brandon Hawken didn't think that we would see anybody completely cut the tri-oval, but nevertheless, it works out for the 97 as, I mean, he might be doing a burnout here. I don't know what he's doing. We can see at least the rotating headlights and do a little bit of a disco show here, but that's about all we'll be able to see. You can see the smoke pretty well, though. So at least you can, I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to see the smoke, but it is pretty visible here on the front straightaway. And, yeah, why not have a dance party there as, I think that's Ryan Pandashio flicking the lights right there as Brandon Hawken goes to victory lane. And we knew this was going to be a crazy finish, but I don't think we even expected that.
We definitely didn't expect that to be how things fared out here. But I think for Hawken, that may have been, we'll have to see how things fared out here in terms of how close things were, because I believe he actually bounced off Justin Malillo to the point where he went in that grass here for this close finish.
It was close. As we take a look at your finishing order, again, many of these cars wrecked at the beginning of that lap. Justin Melillo had reached the start-finish line, so we had a lot to sort out there. Brandon Hawken, your winner. Justin Melillo in second. Adam Martin finished up in third. Luke Breitschoff, he hung in the back pretty much the entirety of the race, ends up in fourth. Sean Butler rounds out your top five. Tristan Hagenstein, your points leader, he was pretty audibly upset with one driver there through 3 and 4 on the final lap. He finishes up in sixth. Ryan Naraki brings it home seventh. Ryan Pandashio in eighth. Lucas Plosel ninth, and Mike McConville completes the top 10.
11th spot tonight ends up going the way of Andrew Hardcastle. He's the last driver to finish on the lead lap. The rest of the field 1 lap down or more. Tower Williams 1 lap down in 12th. Johnson finishes 3 laps down in 13th. Jeremy Clapper recovers to 4 laps down in 14th position. Painter, Poulin, Birdsna, Frisch, Roberts, and Quarter round out the top 20. Kenny Brady and Derek Justice both crashed very early on in this race. They finish in 21st, 22nd, 85 laps down.
And that is your finishing order, as Brandon Hawken going to be talking to one happy winner here. Brandon, you restarted 8th there. You're 7th coming to the white flag. How do you end up in victory lane?
Man, I do not know. that was crazy. I think I'm not sure they were going like 4 or 5 wide going into turn 3, and then they started wrecking, and then I think. Not sure. I think it was Justin. I think that didn't have any draft. So I was just behind like the group of them getting all the draft, and had a huge run coming to the line. There was a small gap to the inside of Justin. He turned left a bit, which sent me into the grass. And man, that was crazy. That entire race was crazy. But the last 2 laps were absolutely nuts.
Yeah, well, speaking of crazy, again, I'm continuing to look at this. How was it driving pretty much in the dark? I mean, I cannot see anything pretty much now. Almost everybody's about pulled off the racetrack. And, I mean, how is it trying to race where you pretty much can't see anything except for, what's right in front of you?
It's not that bad when you have a group of cars with their headlights, but I'm sure if you had one car, or if your headlights were broken, probably wouldn't be the best drive. But yeah, it wasn't too bad with how bright the headlights are on these cars.
All righty, Brandon. Well, I'll toss it to you one more time. Anybody want to give a shout out to for this crazy win here?
Well, yeah, just like thank everybody at FTF, you guys in the broadcast, and Mike McConville, towards the end there, he gave me a really, really good push for that run up until the caution flag, and yeah, so big thanks to him, and shout out to Nick Page. His album dropped today, Badinage. It's really experimental. It's a really good listen, so check him out. And yeah, thank you guys and everybody. It was a really wild night.
It certainly was, and at the end of it all, Brandon Hawken, your winner tonight after 125 laps. Riley DPs at Texas did not disappoint, but Melillo had a good crack at it. He finished up in second. He's got up with Justin Prince.
First things first, Justin, talk us through that final lap of craziness in this one.
I'm sweating, guys. That was really intense, and trying to hold the bottom line and everything. It was. It was, you couldn't get an advantage really if you were the leader, unless you were blocking like crazy and holding the bottom line. And I figured that was going to be my only chance at winning there. And coming off of 4, I cannot believe that Hawken was able to hold it through the grass there. That was insane. What a race.
How difficult was it to plan out the runs with this type of race? Because it seemed like every time it went 3 wide, craziness would ensue almost, it seemed. But as well, it was one where the speeds got higher and higher and higher as the race went on.
It was fun. We were playing around with the fast lap. Me and my teammate Ryan Naraki were at the beginning of the race trying to get the fast lap, and then we realized later on the speeds were just increasing and increasing and increasing as the darkness came in and the temperatures went down, and we realized that we spent the first half of the race doing that for absolutely nothing. The fastest lap probably came on that last run there. That's just how fast the track was at the very end. But it was the way that these cars grip to this track is just an amazing combination, and I was really happy to actually make it to the end of one of these things in one piece. So there's that.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
Thank you guys for putting on the show as always, and thank you to everyone who comes out to these FTF races and joins us for these nights of fun. And I apologize for my voice and this. I've been under the weather for the last 48 hours.
Congratulations on the finish tonight, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Justin Malolo finishes in second. 0.052 seconds is the margin from first to second.
It was a tight finish, and of course, we hope Justin Malillo starts feeling a little bit better if he's feeling a little under the weather. But that's going to wrap us up for interviews there, Justin. And again, I don't know what you could think about this race, or I think we know what we should think about this race, but any final thoughts before we sign off?
Absolute craziness, to say the very least. We've seen some crazy moves, some crazy incidents, some crazy everything tonight. But we were expecting craziness, and we got some of that tonight. But man, oh man, what a finish to this one. Man, oh man, what a way to win. A pass in the grass and making it stick at Texas in these things. Absolutely incredible, to say the very least.
Definitely was something to behold, as it is every week we come out here for the FTF Super Speedway League. But when we come back to you tomorrow night, FTF Grand National Series presented by Bar Visuals gets kicked off at 10 p.m. Eastern from Road Atlanta. We've seen a lot happen in this series. I'm sure a lot of excitement is on the horizon in that very tight road course, so you won't want to miss that. Until then, we're signing off. For Justin Prince and our producer tonight, Zach Johnson, I'm Blake McCandless saying so long tonight from Texas, where we bid you farewell and congratulations to your winner tonight, Brandon Hawken.
Was there something in my walk, how I talk, giving off the wrong energy? Was there something in my stride, too much pride, telling you to back down? Slowly, slowly you became my enemy. But you can't seem to get enough of me. So if this is the last time, I guess I better make it worthwhile. Yeah, if this is the last time, I guess I better give it my all. So if this is the